Machetes are actually kind of interesting in regards to abuse because the way they are often used traditionally and of course by design is to cut vegetation. Such has been shown here, are great tools for it, and this is no exception. But unfortunately, when you're working rather close to the ground, which is what you want to be doing when you're doing this work, bam, you'll often hit right into rocks. And because rocks are much harder than the steel in the blades, they can directly compress the edge and they'll smash it down. Now, machetes are rather tough, so you won't get a lot of fracture, but you can still expect damage in that kind of extreme use. Now, what I'm going to do here is use this knife, which I'm showing is in relatively decent shape now, for some abusive work. And by abusive, I mean work that the tool is not designed to do and which is going to damage it. Abuse has become, as of late, a marketing label where people stick abuse on the titles of videos. They talk about how they've abused the tool in a video by doing things that it's actually designed to do, which is sort of like saying you abused your teeth because you ate a piece of stale bread. Now, why is this abusive? After all, it's cutting wood and machetes are made to cut wood. Well, you can see almost immediately this stops cutting and starts breaking. The reason why is that this wood is very small, it's very hard, and tends to shatter when hit. That combination of three things produces torques or snaps across the edge and will violently bend it. Now, because this machete is relatively tough, it's not going to chip the edge out, but this is something that can put quite a mangle into a number of blades. Now, this is actually so abusive that even axes will not be used to do this. And by the way, for the people that like to comment on videos when people are using knives and other tools to do work such as felling and come in to say axes are used for cutting wood, that's excellent, helpful advice. And you are probably the only person that realizes that. You should also probably make such comments like spoons are used for eating soup, straws are used to drink liquid, boots go on your feet, mittens go on your hands, and other very helpful advice because you're doing an amazing service to the community at large. In any case, the reason why axes are not used to do this is again because the pressures that are produced on the edge during this cutting is much higher than what's produced when you're normally felling or bucking or even limbing. Because the other thing is you're cutting this in the wrong direction. Limbs should be cut from the base of the tree towards the tip, and this is exact opposite. I'm working from the tip of the tree down. That's what you're supposed to do right there, where I turn the machete over just to illustrate you can break them off. You normally break them off with the pole of the axe too, because they're dead, they're hard, you can break them off. But again, I'm doing this just to show you this is brutal. The machete has lost most of the cutting ability by this point, and it's just sort of beating most of this wood off. Again, the edge is turning and twisting, and you'll see it more clearly later on when I do close-ups of the edge. But you can even see it now if you look in close detail. The edge is rippled in most of these contact areas. But again, I'm doing this sort of on request. Jeff Randall asked me to have a look at it and do some rather abusive cutting just to see what would happen. Now, the interesting thing about a decent machete, which is made out of a rather simple steel and sort of spring hardened, is that they're rather difficult to break grossly because these simple steels are extremely tough, so they're very resistant to fracture. You can bend them if you try to split a rather large piece of wood, but to put a permanent warp in them is rather difficult because they're very resilient. But the edge, because you're trying to use it to cut light vegetation, should be rather thin. The angle should be rather small, so when you start doing work like this, you will warp it. Now, the other thing which is interesting about these machetes, and most machetes of this type and style, you don't find it in North American ones in general, but you do find it in a lot of European machetes, the blades are all distally tapered. That's a good idea because it leaves the thin tip very good for cutting light vegetation, and you get some thick steel down by the base which you can use for heavy work. So again, I just break these off with the tip. You can see it's quite easy to do. But the thing which mightn't be obvious is when you look at these machetes, you might actually think, this is really not going to be good here. Yeah, it's not going to cut into this at all. So I'm basically just going to have to beat this off. Again, don't do this unless you really don't. Wow, that's hard to watch. Unless you don't like it. Oh, you can see there the big black spot on the edge was just completely rolled over. So again, that distal taper leaves the tip rather thin, great for light vegetation, horrible for doing this. But what they do, if you look at the edge, you can see it has the same width all along the blade. Well, if it has the same width, but the blade stock is decreasing, that means the angle actually gets much smaller. That's really compounding, not chopping at all, not saying. That's really compounding the damage that you're seeing here because the angle of this machete decreases significantly out towards the tip. Now you can compensate for that, of course. Like if I put the angle of this at around 15 degrees per side or anything higher, you'd beat these off all day long and nothing would ever happen to the edge. I mean, 15 degrees per side would easily blast all these off. But the problem is, as you start increasing that edge angle to get your durability up, and to be able to do silly things like this, you lose the functionality for what the machete, which is actually supposed to be doing. So your cutting ability goes down, your cutting lifetime goes down, and your ease of maintenance is, this is brutal, is significantly reduced. Um, and I mean, people who buy machetes don't buy them to do silly exhibitions like this. You buy them to actually use them, like I was doing in the first of the video. Yeah, so you can see here, this is brutal. The edge is just rippled all along the contact area. And I do a bit of a slow motion rotation here. So this is really nasty. And you can see the edge is just tore up. Yeah, mosquito, they're flying in slow motion too. Um, but here's the other thing. This is not sharpened, right? This is the same mangled up edge. Machetes are very thin, and the very thin blade stock and the very low angle will keep these cutting for a long time, even when you put them mangling into the edge. And you can see I'm very slowly sweeping this here now. Yes, I'm having to do more than one pass because it's a bit damaged, but nothing serious. Okay, now, this is just as a point of view to show you how bad that work was. That's a rock. Bam! That's right into the rock. The damage from that chop is less than the damage where the knife was blasting into the wood. Oh, that's horrible. Look up by the tip. Yeah, right there. That's just really dented. Wow. Yeah, that piece right there, that's gone. That's one of the wood impacts. Anyway, let's give it another good chop. Blam. So the rock is actually hard enough to physically smash the edge straight in. The wood can't do that. It just torques on it and twists it to the side. However, very easy to repair this. This was basically 25 passes per side with a file. Excellent grindability, which is what you want for a machete. And this is good to go again.